Welcome to Today's Issues, a community service program informing you of the issues and events in the four-state area. Now, here are the issues for today on KNEO 91.7 FM.
Good morning. This is Luke Taylor with your KNEO Capital Report. State Senator Jill Carter is joining us today to talk about why she joined the Missouri Freedom Caucus and what their priorities are for this year.
This is Senator Jill Carter, calling with our weekly report. Last week when I called in, I was headed to St. Louis with the launch of the Missouri Freedom Caucus. I wanted to give you just a little bit of an update on that. The launch was the largest kickoff of any other state that has a Freedom Caucus, and there was over 300 in attendance. It was just a really great event. Congressman Eric Burleson was there to lend his support as a member of the National Freedom Caucus in D.C., so it was great to see him. The goal of the Republican Freedom Caucus is to champion those big Republican things that other states seem to have the ability to do with even smaller margins of Republican members of their legislature. States like Florida that 2 years ago had more Democrats in their legislature than we did, but that are doing really big reforms and reining in government bureaucracy. That is the reason why I joined the Freedom Caucus. That's the reason why I came to Jefferson City. The Freedom Caucus this week offered a rule change on the Senate floor that would allow 48 hours for members of the Senate to read a bill. Sometimes omnibus bills are dropped with just minutes to read and decide how we should vote. Bills that have expanded their scope from as little as 1 to 5 pages, then in seconds is turned into 45, 75, or 100 pages, with only minutes to read and decide how to vote. So one of the priorities of the Freedom Caucus was to offer a rule change that would allow us a bill to sit when it's amended to allow us 48 hours, 2 legislative days, to read a piece of legislation and be able to know how to vote for it. That was voted on the Senate floor after deliberation, and it was voted down. There was only 7 of us members of the Senate that voted in favor of that rule. So that rule did not go into the books. So we're going to have to continue to fight and push back and be able to stand up when we have a concern or a question about legislation. Part of the reason why we brought this bill up was because last legislative session, when bills would be expanded in their scope, we were told by leadership, I was specifically told by leadership and several others as well that would answer questions or ask questions to sit down. We were told to sit down and be quiet. So this is something that isn't necessarily about me, but it's about the 181,000 people that I represent. And when, as an elected official, you're told to sit down and be quiet, I hope that this peels back a little bit of what's going on up here and what went on last session, and then one of the reasons why I joined the Freedom Caucus, so that things like this, hopefully there'll be a conscientious change with other Republicans in the Senate we've kind of lost our way a little bit when it comes to what it means to be a Republican, and what we're trying to do is be that conscientious voice. So I've watched for the past 10 years, had watched how government functioned the last 10 years. It is one of the reasons why I came up here, is to change it and to become the Republicans that we say that we are during election season. So I want to share just a brief, to pivot a little bit, I wanted to share a brief 2 or 3 top priorities that we have filed with legislation. SB 814, this session we're super focused on education legislation to allow our teachers, our schools, our elected board members, and our children the flexibility to learn and grow without the heavy bureaucratic oversight that has created such a stranglehold on our public education system. This Education Freedom Act allows schools the flexibility to use their internal assessments as accountability, and it also allows schools third-party accreditation, so pivoting away from the federal Department of Ed and the State Department of Ed. The next one is Senate Bill 815, and this creates access to the banking system without being denied access because of ESG scores or social credit scores, which I feel like is really important. This is a piece of legislation that was passed in Florida, so we hope to get that done here. And the last one is Senate Bill 816, and it relates to our electronic voting software, which allows our citizens and our residents in Missouri to request the source code of the software used for voter tabulation from the Secretary of State's office, which will, I hope, in turn, bring some of that confidence back to our elected offices and also to our elections. I appreciate hearing from you guys. It's something that I am super passionate about. When I hear from you or have you come up, it's just always a joy and a pleasure to have you and to hear from you. I want you to know that you're my priority, so please don't hesitate to reach out if there's any concerns or questions. Thank you so much.
32nd District State Senator Jill Carter can be reached at her Jefferson City office at 573-751-2173. We'll also mention that we're making the KNEO Capitol Report available as a podcast now. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts and get each day's update from our local legislators. Just search for KNEO Capitol Report.
This has been Today's Issues. For more information about the issues you've just heard, call 417-451-5636. Today's Issues is presented as a public service of KNEO 91.7 FM, a Sky High radio network.